Welcome to the official launch of Blender Cheat Sheets. If you want to download this add-on, please go visit my GitHub repo on Dead Dog Down, and you'll find all of the add-ons that I've created to help me expedite my workflow so that I can get my game ready for release. I'm presently working on my first 3D game for release. I'm not too sure when it will happen yet because there's a lot of work still ahead, but I have to use a tool that I can understand. And so Blender Cheat Sheets, I felt, needed a couple of workflow optimizations to make the user interface a little bit more friendly for the way that I think. For most people, I know that you can remember hundreds of commands and you've got a very good memory. I don't work like that. I'm very visually driven. So unless I see it in front of me, I don't want to remember it. So the main focus of Blender Cheat Sheets was not only to help myself improve my workflow and also to improve the way that I use the tools. It was also a way so that many other people out there that are like me, that don't want to remember hundreds and hundreds of shortcuts just to be productive, they get the full use out of Blender. So by now you all know how to install an add-on. And if you've already downloaded it and installed it, you already know to go to your N panel to open it up. I'm not going to show you how to download it, how to install it. You've seen this 1,000 ways from 1,000 people in 1,000 videos. Let's focus on what's important, which is our 3D language education. To start off, you're going to tap the N panel open, and straight away you're going to see cheat sheets in one of the tabs on the side here. I've deliberately exposed the object mode and the edit mode right at the start so that you have a very clear idea of what mode you're in. This is one of the biggest problems that spins most Blender users, is trying to follow a sequence of events on YouTube and you can't see what mode that they're in. And so you try up until a certain point, you can't duplicate the tutorial, and then you see, oh flip, I'm in the wrong mode. You've got to get this right. When you're in the correct mode, your modeling goes smoothly. And with Blender creation, you're tapping in and out of these modes all the time. And in the more advanced phases of Blender, when you get into animation, posing, and shading, and all the rest of this, you are tapping out between even more than these two modes. So as a beginner, you've got to understand the difference between object mode and edit mode so that you can duplicate a tutorial that you see on YouTube and get to the end result, which is you want to see that model in front of you by the time that tutorial is finished. I know that for many users, including myself, when I've watched tutorials on YouTube and I can't get to the final end result, how absolutely disheartening it is, how absolutely soul-crushing it is, because I can't duplicate the tutorial, because I'm not aware of looking at this tiny box on the left-hand side. I need it visually in front of me so that I can see a cue of what's happening in the editor. Another thing you'll notice, which is a very big bugbear for a lot of people doing YouTube tutorials, following along with them, I expressly state the Blender version that this was written for, and that's out of respect for you, because I know that most of the time in the past when I've downloaded a specific version of Blender and then I followed along a tutorial on YouTube and then I can't duplicate it, and then I've got to figure out, oh, it's because I can't see the version. But a lot of people don't know to look there. So this is a way to make it a lot more explicit, a lot more visually friendly, a lot more important for you to see. I'll leave these tags in every single video, so it's a hard and clear reminder. Even when the screen resolution is lower, you'll still be able to see, oh, okay, this was written for Blender 3.6 LTS. I'm sticking specifically to the LTS version, so I can say for now that Blender Cheat Sheets works for Blender 3.6 LTS and Blender 4.2. I'm not focused on alpha, beta, or RC because I'm in a production environment and I need a stable system. I don't upgrade while on production. I only upgrade during the holidays, so I'm only going to upgrade once a year. And then as those newer releases become more stable and long-term supported, then I'll start to roll it into my system, into my workflow, into my pipeline. So let's get into the opening section of Blender cheat sheets and why this is important. When you're in object mode, you'll notice you've got some very basic manipulation functions which are common to almost every single section: grab, rotate, and scale. But you'll notice that the vertice, edge, and face is grayed out. Now, generally, move, rotate, and scale is not only applicable to object mode, but it's also applicable to edit mode. But vertice, edge, and face is not applicable to object mode. You all know by now that if you're in a scene, you select your object, then manipulate it. G will move it, R will rotate it, scale will size it. Now, if I go into edit mode, I'm no longer strictly working in that frame of reference to move the general object itself. I'm now working with the facets that make up that specific object. So if I tap on vertice, I can move a vertice. I can even rotate a vertice. Okay, you won't see it on that. I can scale. That won't scale either unless I tap two vertices. Now, vertices make up the geometry, the shape, the representation of that object that I'm trying to represent. Edges are the connections between the vertices, and the faces themselves is the place that I want to paint my story, where I want to sculpt my creation, where I want to convey the message that I am sharing with people. But you'll notice that all of these buttons become highlighted. This is a very subtle thing, but it's very good to see visually, because later on you'll see that when you're in the wrong mode, the buttons will deselect. So you can't click something that's not applicable to that mode. That means you're going to make less mistakes, and also you're not going to be clicking a button that's not clickable. You can't really do that when you have to memorize 100 shortcuts and then still try to remember which mode that shortcut works in and which mode that shortcut does not work in. Okay, you also know by now that there is a shortcut key for every command, but what I've made sure to do is explain what the command is in human-friendly language and then show the shortcut key. If you want to, you can always use the shortcut key, or you can just press the button and it'll do the same thing. Some of the buttons, if you click them in the add-on, won't affect in the correct way. They'll still affect the scene, but because you're not in the scene with your mouse, you might have to use the shortcut key to get the real motion that you want. So these are reminders first, button functionality second, and clear language third. Let's move on to the general section, which is the starting section. I'm not going to go beyond this, and this will be a very short section. In the following tutorials, I'll go into viewport and all of the rest of these sections in a brief overview. You're going to find functionality that I've added that's not in Blender, and some of this functionality will make your workflow a lot more efficient. So I hope that you're going to come back and visit. It's GPL version 2 for life. So tag along if you want to see a really cool tool that has already brought me so much cathartic relief. I'm finding I don't have to worry about my cognitive load. What was that shortcut key? What key sequence was that? WS21.3XG. That tells me nothing. I want to see the instructional word, the commanding word, to get my workflow done. I don't want to remember this. I don't want to remember 1, 2, 3, GRX, blah, 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 blah. Okay, moving on. The general section covers the most important principle for anybody in 3D creation. It doesn't matter what industry that you're in. If you're designing something for NASA that's going to fly to the moon, if you are in laser sintering, 3D printing, if you are in signage, if you are in architectural design, unless you specify your unit system, sadly, you're still considered an amateur. because that's going to cost money. Imagine I send a design to someone in metric and they think it's meant to be made in imperial. Who's going to pay the difference for the materials wasted? I know that for most folk, they will simply choose none because they're working in Blender, so that's their free-form creation mode. They're not worried about what size or scale it is in. But even in the game that I'm designing, I'm going to be sticking with metric because I want a consistent measurement system, and I want to make sure that I can give that measurement system to any of the designers that come onto my team. The next is input section. It's very simple. I'm going to leave you to that. I have a 3-button mouse. I didn't want to exclude this for those that do not have a mouse wheel. So I'm not going to explain everything because they are self-explanatory. And the last little section in this tutorial is what I call fuzzy search or search operators. In the window, you can either click F3. Then if you're looking up for a command, anything related or a fraction of that word to, let's say, for instance, edge, you'll see everything related to edge. If you're looking for something related to cube, type the word cube. Even if you write a few of the letters of that word, the fuzzy search will find it for you. But you can also just click it in the window and you'll get the same search menu right there. Right, so what we've covered in this first tutorial is basically the importance of knowing when you are in object mode or edit mode. That certain commands are applicable in one mode, certain commands are applicable in another mode, and sometimes there is spillover where commands are applicable in both. And these are only the first 2 modes. There are many more modes which you'll have to wrap your mind around. Also, we've covered the general section where you have to understand that for you to be considered professional in any 3D industry, make sure to specify your unit system so that the receiver of your file knows what measurement system you were using, and you know how to find the search operators. At any time, I've tried to include some very simple help functionality, but because it tends to over-clutter the user interface, I've made sure that it can toggle on and off. If you have any suggestions for this specific section, please drop it on my GitHub repo, and I will strongly consider putting it into the Blender cheat sheets add-on. I'm not going to be menu shuffling here just because one person wants to see that button there and this one there. I've got to try to keep this universal. So I welcome your suggestions, but I'm not going to be moving sections around just because someone sees something differently. I'm seasoned enough to know what 3D language is. I don't want to cater to the few. I want to cater to the many, and I want to listen to what you guys really, really want. If there's going to be any major restructuring of Blender cheat sheets, it'll be when I hit 100,000 users, and then I'll throw out a vote and say, what do you think that we should do? Should we start refining this? But up until that time, this layout stays exactly the same because I need workflow consistency. I don't want to spend 50% of my time debugging and learning a new menu every single release. I want to focus on my 3D asset creation. So for this reason, I'm sending this out as an encouragement to the people that come on board, especially the newbies. This layout won't change. So you will always know you're going to find that button in that specific place for the long foreseeable future until the user base is large enough where this deserves a redesign. But I don't see this being redesigned anytime soon. Please remember that this software is GPL version 2 for life. You will never have to pay for it. It'll never be behind a paywall. You'll never have to register for it. If you see anybody selling it to you or anything like that, make sure to delete that account, demand your money back, and go GPL version 2. Support Blender. I think they've done a wonderful job, and I also welcome your support because it takes a lot of time to put an add-on like this together and release it to the public, and it's a huge time diversion away from my game asset creation. But that said, if you go to my repo on GitHub, you will find that there are some other add-ons that I've included for free that are designed to specifically help you get your work done in a little bit more of a logically efficient way. And that for me is a game changer, especially with Blender cheat sheets, because now I can see every single command right in front of me in a visually centric area. I can move from my modeling to my toolbar, to my modeling to my toolbar. I no longer have to go from my model, menu, menu, model, menu, menu, model, menu, 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 model, menu, model, keyboard, shortcut key, model, shortcut model, menu, menu, model. I can keep my eyes on my model and on my toolbar. And that for me is just such a wonderful relief. For those of you out there, I know that you're going to have cathartic relief when you use this for the first time. It's just going to make sense. I hope you enjoy the add-on. I welcome you back to the next tutorial where we'll be covering Viewport.